New Hollywood, sometimes referred to as the American New Wave, usually refers to a movement in American film history from the mid to late 1960s, such as Bonnie and Clyde, The Graduate, and Easy Rider.
Shut up.
To the early 1980s, Heaven's Gate, One from the Heart. When a new generation of young filmmakers came to prominence in the United States, influencing the types of films produced, their production and marketing, and the way major studios approach filmmaking. In 1948, the Supreme Court dealt a crushing blow to the Hollywood studio system in the US v Paramount Pictures case. They decided that chains that were showing specific films was against the antitrust laws and ended block booking and ownership of theatre chains by studios. This meant that new wave filmmakers could get their films into cinemas and have them publicly shown. This lawsuit was seen as the first nail in the coffin of the classic Hollywood studio system and the golden age of cinema. The term American New Wave has been used to refer to at least three generations of American filmmakers. The first, emerging in the 1950s in New York, were concerned with realism and a truthful depiction of American society at the time. Around the same era, the Korean War begins, James Dean was killed in a highway accident, and Rosa Parks inspired the Montgomery bus boycott. The second, often called the New Hollywood Generation, rose to prominence in the late 60s, bringing a new set of values representative of the counterculture and an aesthetic influenced by the French New Wave. 1960s America saw many events that sparked change. John F. Kennedy became president and was assassinated, Neil Armstrong became the first man on the moon, and Martin Luther King Jr. began his civil rights movement. The Vietnam War also happened in the 60s, as well as counterculture and drug use becoming more and more common. More recently, in the late 80s and 90s, a new generation of filmmakers working outside the studio system and openly in debt to both the Nouvelle Vague and New Hollywood were awarded the mantle. During this time period, John Lennon was assassinated, the Los Angeles riots took place, and Bill Clinton was inaugurated as the 42nd President of the United States.
Are there people inside that car?
The black car, the
Yes.
second lane? Yes.
My fellow citizens, today we celebrate the mystery of American renewal.
In New Hollywood films, the film director, rather than the studio, took on a key authorial role. After the demise of the studio system and the rise of television, the commercial success of films was diminished. The New Hollywood period, spanning the mid-60s and early 80s, was a period of revival. The texts we will be focusing on are Raging Bull, Taxi Driver and Mean Streets, all of which were directed by Martin Scorsese. Taxi Driver is a 1976 American neo-noir psychological thriller film. It stars Robert De Niro as the protagonist, Travis Bickle. In Scorsese on Scorsese, Martin talks about how much of the film arose from his feeling that movies are like dreams or drug-induced reveries. The writer, Schrader, decided to make Bickle a Vietnam veteran because the national trauma of the war, which had finished the year before the film was released, seemed to blend perfectly with Bickle's paranoid psychosis. This helped in making his experiences after the war more intense and threatening. When Travis has begun his descent into psychosis, the editing reveals his disjointed state. As Travis turns towards the camera and his voiceover reads a section from his diary,
"Listen, you fuckers, you screwheads. Here is a man who would not take it anymore, who would not let... Listen, you fuckers, you screwheads."
The scene suddenly cuts and repeats itself. The cut is so abrupt that it seems like a mistake. Travis repeats himself obsessively in the "you talking to me" speech.
You talking to me? You talking to me? Then who the hell else are you talking? You talking to me? Well, I'm the only one here. Who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Oh, yeah?
This emphasises his paranoia by him thinking
Okay.
that people may be talking about him.
Huh?
The climactic shootout was considered intensely graphic by a few critics at the film's premiere. To attain an R rating, Scorsese had the colours desaturated, making brightly coloured blood less prominent.
In 1965, almost 70% of primetime programming came from newly converted television facilities of major studios. In a sense, television became a new way for studios to control distribution post the antitrust decision. The success
Conclusion. Overall, the effect of New Hollywood has meant that cinema has become a lot more accessible and allows other filmmakers to break into the film industry instead of being blocked by massive budgets and sets. Having a more documentary style and using very similitude styles makes it so much easier for filmmakers to make good films without big price tags. Though this did cause problems, those only added to the new wave's characteristics and further progressed the techniques used in New Hollywood.